Hey friends, Sean from Draft Therapy here, and on today's review for you, this is the bottom line. Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA is a 6.7% IPA from Segundo Brewing Company in Segundo, California. I picked this beer up a couple weeks ago when I was down in Columbus. Now, this beer has been on my radar for a little bit. I've always been intrigued because I remember Stone Cold bashing Budweisers together, not IPAs, not Sierra Nevadas. So how good could an IPA that's supposedly designed by Steve Austin be? That's what I'm here to find out. So let's take a look at the label. We'll get it into a glass. But first, I'd like to thank my executive producers, Brian Kramer, David Jeffries, Chad Shirk, and Cam Freeman for helping to bring this review to you today. If you'd like to become a producer, help out the channel, or maybe just throw me a couple bucks to buy me a beer, take a look at my Patreon at patreon.drafttherapy.com, where you can get early access to these videos and a few other special perks available only to patrons, including a little something called a giveaway. So check it out. So let's take a look at this label here. On the front, it really tells you everything. It says Segundo Brewing Company, Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA. This is 6.7% alcohol by volume. This is a 1-pint can, which I mentioned pretty much all in the upfront. There's this barbed wire across the front. It's got the Stone Cold Steve Austin skull on the front. If we turn it around to the back, it says Broken Skull India Pale Ale and has Steve Austin's signature named after his Broken Skull Ranch. Underneath that, it says Broken Skull India Pale Ale, a badass 6.7% IPA designed by Steve Austin and Segundo Brewing Company for the working man and woman. It features Citra, Cascade, and Chinook hops to deliver a big flavor with an easy finish. Now stop reading and start enjoying this awesome beer. Cheers. On the other side of that is the government warning. So this is an IPA. I'm going to use an authentic IPA glass here. We're going to crack it. We're going to put a nose on the can. It has this kind of, tan looking label. It just looks like something Old West, right? Which makes sense. It's supposed to be Broken Skull Ranch. So I'm going to crack this one. Put a nose on it. It has all the makings of an IPA, at least from the aroma, from just straight out of the can here. It's got a little bit of a, has a little bit of a malty aroma, has a little bit of maybe a citrus in there. It smells like an IPA. If you've had an IPA before and you've smelled an IPA, it smells like a run-of-the-mill IPA. So let's go ahead and pour it. Coming out pretty clear. I don't think this will be confused with a hazy IPA, but it's coming out pretty clear yellow out of the can. There is a little bit, it does look like it has a little bit of a sediment pouring out of the can. I'm going to pour a little bit more in there. And if we look at it, we got about 3 fingers ahead on this glass. It is a tad bit hazier than I was expecting. Let's take a look at the bubbles on the top, on the head. It is very compact, it looks like just a block of styrofoam. I know I've said styrofoam, on some of these reviews a little bit more recently, but this looks like it's a really dense head, really bright white, lots of, smaller bubbles, even on the cross section. If we hold it up here, so it's a little bit more of a golden yellow across the top, a little bit more of a golden. On the bottom, it's a little bit more see-through. I can see a little bit of sediment kind of floating down to the bottom. It does have a little bit of a haze to it. If I put my hand up between the light and the glass, I can see the edges of my fingers. There's not much of a problem seeing through it, but it's not totally filtered. It is not a totally clear IPA. Let's put a nose on the glass here. Getting a little bit more of a citrus aroma, not so much of the malty aroma that I was getting out of the can. There's a hair of a kind of resinous, piney aroma in there as well. Let's go ahead and try this one out. Cheers. If we start with the mouthfeel, it has a really crisp mouthfeel. It's not super light. It's not, shading towards medium. It's like right in the middle. It's a little bit on the lighter side of an IPA. It's not quite, it's not got quite that medium mouthfeel, but it has a nice crisp, light flavor, or light crispness. The mouthfeel is a nice light crisp mouthfeel. Let's go ahead and talk about the flavor here. So the one thing that I pick up, especially off the beginning, is a little bit of a malty sweetness. There is a little bit of a malty sweetness in there. It then starts to shade a little bit to like a zesty orange peel bitterness, the hot bitterness, and then after that, there is a little bit of a resinous kind of piney, bitter quality to it. I feel like a lot of the sweetness that I'm getting is most of them like a malty sweetness. Again, there is that citrus bitterness to it. It kind of then fades into a little bit more of a resinous, piney bitterness, but then there's a little bit more of an orange sweetness that comes through, a little bit of a citrus sweetness through on the finish. It's almost like you get the malty sweetness, you get the orange zesty bitterness, then you get a little bit of a piney resinous bitterness, and then, you know, that sweetness, the orange sweetness kind of comes through again. It's a pretty decent IPA. It's not, it won't be confused with a hazy IPA at all. It's not like a New England style IPA. You're not getting those juicy citrus notes. There is a citrus sweetness to it, but there's also a malty sweetness to it. So it's more, almost more akin to a West Coast IPA, but it's not quite that resinous. It's not quite that strong. It's not quite that, it's just not that bitter. So I wouldn't put this in the West Coast IPA category. It's like an in-between. I think of malty IPAs where you really taste that maltiness, that malt sweetness. I really put that more in the Midwest IPA category. West Coast IPA is more that piney, resinous bitterness. This one's kind of right in the middle. You're getting a little bit of that sweeter, maltier flavor up front, and then you get that citrus on the back end, the citrus sweetness that comes through. This is a pretty good, you know, everyday IPA. It's not going to blow your socks off, but I think if you're just looking for a straight up IPA, if you're kind of, if you're over all the hazies, if you're a little bit burnt out on the hazies, this is a nice return to form. I wouldn't expect the Stone Cold Steve Austin IPA to be like a, you know, this New England style IPA. If they're going to put Steve Austin's name on it, if they're going to pay him enough money to put his name on this, I would think that it's just going to be a traditional, typical IPA. It's not going to be anything too crazy. It's a little bit on the safer side. Again, it is an IPA. It's a damn good IPA at that. It's not, there's nothing spectacular to write home about, but it is, for what they say on the label here, they say that it's for, you know, the working man and woman. I would say this is a pretty good, you know, working man's IPA. It's, again, there's nothing special. There's nothing that jumps out that says, hey, this is the best IPA I've ever had. Definitely not the worst IPA I've ever had. And it doesn't try to go too crazy and be that juicy New England style IPA. It just sticks in that IPA lane. It doesn't go too far outside of that. Would I go out and seek this out? I think I would go seek it out like I did for the novelty of it being a Stone Cold Steve Austin, you know, Broken Skull IPA. But once I've had it, it's kind of like, okay, I've had that. You know, if anybody says, oh, hey, Stone Cold has a beer, have you ever tried it? I said, yeah, I've tried that Stone Cold IPA. Was it great? No, it was okay. Was it horrible? No, absolutely not. This is a very serviceable IPA. So if you're just looking for a straight up IPA and you see it on the shelf and all the other stuff's, you know, not really catching your interest, it's good to try it just to see what it's like. But I don't think this is anything better than just a run-of-the-mill, go to your local brewery and order an IPA. I think it's going to be pretty much that, you know, if you're expecting that, that's what you're going to get. But that being all said and done, would I buy it again? Nah, I think I just would buy it for the novelty of it, but it is a perfectly serviceable IPA. And I'm actually pretty impressed that it is as serviceable as it is, you know, all the gimmicky Steve Austin stuff aside. All right, friends, that has been Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA. Have you had this one before? Do you have an Ohio beer that you think maybe I should go down and grab next time for the channel? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there, if you like beer, you might want to subscribe and click that bell. I'm here talking about beer twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's all for free for viewers just like you. And you might miss your newest favorite, or you might be able to avoid that dud if you're subscribed and getting those notifications. So until next time, I'm Sean from Draft Therapy. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, drink craft beer. Support your local breweries. These guys are in El Segundo, California. And most importantly, don't forget to treat yourself to a little draft therapy. Thanks for watching, everybody. Cheers. See you next time.